Hey you guys, it's your girl Natural. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy you're here. If you're new here, please do me a favor. Go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the bell so you know whenever I post a video. So, really quick video. If you guys had been tracking my channel for a while, you saw that I did a bunch of videos about Donald Trump when he was coming under the felony, the 37 felony counts that he had related to the seditious conspiracy stuff. And then I fell off. The only reason that I fell off is because sometimes I have to feel in me that, in my spirit, that I've kind of collected my thoughts to talk about stuff like this sometimes. And I've been collecting my thoughts, and I'm still not completely there. But I did want to do a little check-in before I did get to that point where I collected my thoughts, because since we last spoke, he's faced more charges of he was convicted in the E. Jean Carroll trial as a sexual abuser, which he in turn went and made fun of her at the CNN town hall. Y'all know I was done with CNN after that dang on town hall. How crazy. And she's suing him again, but that really does not stop him from shutting his mouth. He is a tyrant. He is a tyrant. He is a fascist, an authoritarian, delusional, and a tyrant. And the people who are still continuing to support him, that really points to their mental health, where they are with their mental health, with their spiritual health. It points to a lot of things. But I am hopeful that justice is really is showing its head. I think that we're getting there. And now he's got these additional. Now he has 57, I think, felony counts against him. And now he has what's additional right now that we've been watching recently is him getting these indictments for the Mar-a-Lago documents. I'm not really ready to comment on that. I kind of want to come back and comment when I feel like we've gotten further and, we can kind of see what the city looks like through the trees. I feel like the trees are still in the way, and so I don't really want to get too excited until we know what's coming. But, and I have a feeling that's going to be when it's clear that he's definitely not going to be in the White House, From last month, he was at 53%, how do you call it, favorability amongst Republicans for the 2024 candidate amongst the Republican candidates. And this month, he is at 47%. So it's going down. It's happening way slower than it should. But, that's how cult mentalities go. This man since 2016 has done way more damage than he could ever know. Narcissists, abusers don't really understand the kind of damage that they're doing, not on the conscious level. On the subconscious level, they know that they're doing too much, and they're creating chaos. They're making people miserable. They know on a subconscious level, but confronting that would mean that they would have to adopt some level of cognitive dissonance, and they're incapable of that. They would have to adopt some level of emotional intelligence, of empathy. They're incapable of that. But I do think it's happening slowly but surely. We're just going to have to keep going. I feel like I'm not really ready to talk about it, 100% until I see that these people who have been so susceptible to this cult thing are coming down. But when I look at what's happening in Italy, for example, in Israel, and also this weird relationship between Trump and Putin, you see authoritarianism popping up all over the place since 2016 in ways that are super duper overt as well as in ways that are subtle. And I really, you've seen so many people researching narcissistic abusers in these past 10 years, 7 or 8 years that Donald Trump has been around, and that he has held this level of power that he has. And, it's not a coincidence. Like I told you guys, the other day I looked at an article coming out of Australia, and it was essentially the tone of the article was like, oh my God, what are we going to do if Donald Trump becomes president in 2024? It's going to ruin the economy. What are we going to do about trade relations? reparations, like if he becomes president, it will be catastrophic. In the EU, where I live here in France, all of the EU is talking about, holy crap, what are we going to do if this man becomes president again? In more and more cities across the European Union, including Germany, in Australia, in the UK, you see white nationalism springing up. You see like outrageous Karen and Ken behavior happening more and more and more and more. I looked at this video from Scotland with Indisputable with Dr. Rashad, and there was a man driving. There was a little old lady walking in the middle of the street. Yes, she was walking in the middle of the street, but she was really going slow. You can tell that it was rough for her. She probably didn't even have the will or the energy to cross on over to the edge of the street. And if this man in the car, who was filming the whole thing, to embarrass this lady, it was like a Karen and a Ken together. She was a Karen, yes, but he was a Ken, and he was not being very nice. And this was two white people. This wasn't even like a racist type thing. It's just to show you that this narcissistic, inconsiderate, not compassionate, this behavior that Donald Trump has done is reverberating around the world. And he's filming her, calling her a bitch, telling her to get out of the middle of the street. He's honking his horn at her. I mean, this woman's moving like a snail. I mean, you can tell if she turns around in the wrong way, one of them hips gonna break. And this man is showing no compassion to that, and if he would have waited, like legitimately, if he would have waited, say like 30 seconds to 2 minutes, she would have gotten out of the way. She would have gotten to the point of where she would walked into her house or made the turn onto the street she was going to. And, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. He gets out of his car. He's yelling at her like crazy. This is, you look at what's going on in the UK. I talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle a lot on this channel. You look at what's going on in the UK. Boris Johnson, Donald Trump light over there in the UK, basically ruined the UK economy for the average person. Him and Nigel Farage with the Brexit craziness. And he's invited to the coronation. He's now a correspondent for the Daily Mail. Yeah, it's so true. I'm not trying to blame all the world's problems on Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has opened up Pandora's box of fascism, racism, misogyny, authoritarianism, and he is going to destroy some economies. He already has started to destroy some economies. Why? Because in places like the UK, the US, Australia, Italy, Germany, Spain, France, you cannot have these countries, especially where slavery used to exist and now people are equal, where misogyny, rampant misogyny used to exist, and then women's suffrage happened, and now women have a place in society. You can't have that and then have this wave of authoritarianism, of misogyny, of racism, of fascism stem up, and then you're trying to put all the women out of jobs, out of positions of power, out of representation in government, and black and brown people out of jobs, out of power, out of positions of government, and then expect the economy to do well. The economy is gonna be trashed because essentially you're trying to take, imagine it being a pie, okay? And, you've got 8 parts of the pie, and the pie is government jobs, it's government representation, it's, employment within the workforce, it's executive leadership, it's advocacy, it's wealth, and you're giving 7 parts to like 30% of the like 30% of the society, and that 30% is essentially white men. If you hadn't got it. And then the 70% is just everybody else. Women, gay people, black people, brown people. Do you seriously think the economy is going to thrive like that? No, it's going to breed a bunch of billionaires. We have way more billionaires than we ever had in 1950. And yet, you have people in the U.S. at the very least, but all over, poor whites who are supporting people like Donald Trump, crying about their wages, crying about the fact that they can barely afford to feed their families when they, unbeknownst to them, are also a part of that 70% that people like Donald Trump and Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson and Netanyahu have utterly screwed over. It's gotta, if it's a democracy, it's gotta be a democracy for the poor whites, for the middle class whites, for the blacks, the lower class, middle class blacks. It's gotta be a democracy for transgender people. It's gotta be a democracy for women. It's gotta be a democracy for everyone. Or otherwise, the economy is gonna be trashed. Now, that's all to say Donald Trump is a tyrant. Donald Trump is clearly a tyrant. There's so many ways that I can explain how he's a tyrant. He makes fun of sexual abuse victims. Okay? He tells the Proud Boys, what does he say? Stand down, whatever it was. Basically, the green light to impose violence upon marginalized groups. He is responsible for 24 people dying in the Mexican ICE camps. He shared vital secrets with Russia. He tried to steal a bunch of information, particularly about Iran and the U.S.'s plans to attack Iran, to use it to his advantage, to use it as a bargaining chip. Oh, God, it gets my blood boiling even just talking about it. He incited violence to overthrow the seat of American democracy. And lastly, and most importantly, but there's so many others, so many others, he refused to cooperate with the peaceful transfer of power. He refused to. He's a tyrant. He's a tyrant. Now, there was a recent special that Rachel Maddow did, and I can't think of the name, but apparently there was, I believe, a governor back in the 60s or the 70s, who had also had a bunch of indictments against him, had a bunch of legal actions against him. And similarly to Donald Trump, he was spurring up a lot of action and activity amongst white nationalists in the United States. And these people were supporting him, buddy. They were supporting him. And you know what? The DOJ was like, yo, you need to sit down. You don't need to run for president. Don't you run for president. And he did this speech saying, I'm going to run. If you guys can find it, just go look at the Rachel Maddow show. I think it was from probably about a week or two ago. And he was like, no, I'm not stepping down. And 24 hours later or something, he stepped down. He said he wasn't going to run for office. And then he said he wasn't going to run for office. Eventually, when the DOJ had put the fear of life in him enough to show, like, no, this wasn't going to happen. But it just goes to show that justice always catches up with you. And the economic implications, in the past 20 years, this is not all on Donald Trump, but I told you in another video, America has dropped down from number 2 to 16th of, college graduates, in terms of academic accomplishments. More and more people not going to university, more and more people not getting married, more and more people not having a religion since Donald Trump. More and more black people feeling like America has regressed in terms of racism versus going forward. More and more women feeling like America has regressed in terms of equality versus going forward. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And now, very, very real implications for the U.S. in terms of trade deals, in terms of exports and imports. Countries don't want to do business with bigots. When you go think of that, countries don't want to do business with people who show themselves to be authoritarians, to be tyrants, to be cultists. There is this even, I saw, and I have such respect for them. Check it out if you can. There's a website called Republicans Against Donald Trump. and they've got a whole page of video testimonials of a lot of Republicans who say, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't morally support this anymore, and I gotta go my own way. You know, there's a point where loyalty becomes a fault. And these cultists, you know, these people who refuse to go get psychological help, to go get an education, to go talk to a therapist to figure out why they can't feel empathy like others, who are continuing to support Donald Trump, who are continuing like Ron DeSantis. You know, at one point I thought Ron DeSantis could be a good alternative. Now, Lord, I have been educated. You know, to have women carry a pregnancy they know in which the baby is gonna die, to have to deliver a dead baby. You know, the tyranny of this is so disgusting. You know. And if we give this election into the hands of these MAGA cultists, America as we have known it is going to end. And those people who are vulnerable, who have invested in Donald Trump because he says all the right things that appeases their frustrations about other circumstances in their life, you know, which are always very vague and very sort of marketing. You know, there's no real substance, no real policy in anything that he says. But for those vulnerable people, they are also going to lose the way of life that they've come to know as well. That's the saddest part, is those people who have supported Donald Trump, who have believed in him, who trusted him, they are also going to get hurt. You know, America has been a powerhouse because of freedom and democracy. Real freedom and democracy, diversity. And now that is all going to go down the drain. America is going to turn into Nazi Germany if that man is elected president again. And some people are still saying, oh yeah, going right forward with it. Little to them knowing that their lives, I mean, it's going to be bad for them if that happens. The supporters of Donald. Not even to mention, you know, this is coming from an unselfish place. You know this is coming from an unselfish place when I'm talking about Donald Trump supporters about to being suffering. But if this continues, countries are not going to do trade deals with America. America will no longer be a military powerhouse. What little healthcare coverage, child care coverage that people have right now will absolutely be completely eviscerated with Donald Trump. Quite literally, America will become a third world country. It'll become a third world country. You know, it's according to a lot of people on the internet now, it's on its way there. But it quite literally will become that. And people are going to move away. People are going to move to Europe. They're going to move to Africa. They're going to move to Asia. Because they're going to say, you know what, I'm done with this. You know, the people who are most affected by it are going to leave first. That's going to be the black people, the brown people, the women, the transgender people. And all you're going to be left with is authoritarian incels, men's rights activists, and the poor, sad souls who call themselves women who tolerate those men. And you know what's going to happen? And the rich elites, like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Ron DeSantis, and you know, those people, they're going to be the only ones left over there. And you know what's going to happen to them? Infighting. Those factions going to start infighting, and they are going to implode. Now, how does that relate to Henry VIII? You guys know that I'm a huge history buff. Henry VIII was a tyrant, you know, and it's very sad because in the beginning of his career as monarch in the UK in the 15th century, he was a young man, he was very athletic, and he was jovial. You know, he was a joy to be around for most people. He was extremely well learned. He was a philosopher. He was a humanist. And then somewhere, I believe around his 30s, he had a fatal jousting accident that damaged his brain, and he became the tyrant that we know today. Out of 6 women that he married, 3 of them died, 2 of them were beheaded. One died in childbirth. He waged absolutely bankrupting wars, senseless, despicable, and useless wars on the taxpayers' money, on British taxpayers' money, and lost. Wars based off of essentially petty squabbles. Him trying to pump himself up and show how much of a winner he was, how much of a loser that he was not, and in turn losing the British people money. This is times where plagues were raging on. He created so many problems in terms of education. Now, when he was younger, a lot of improvements in society happened in terms of education, in terms of art. He was definitely a patron of the art in his youth. But after that point of that injury, especially where he had his leg, which, there's tales of Hampton Court Palace, which I did visit. I had to do a video about that one day. I really have been meaning to, but I keep forgetting. There's speculation that sometimes you can hear the ghost of Henry VIII walking around, dragging around his dead leg, and he was outrageously angry. He was big, fat, stinky, because of the gout from his leg was all the pus from his leg was always running, and he had gout in his foot. He was extremely overweight. The food he was eating he was basically eating for 3 people. He just was selfish. He didn't care about his daughter Mary, who he shared with Catherine of Aragon. He forever, honestly, throughout his life, regretted the way that he treated his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. It's basically all to say that by the time that his daughter, Elizabeth I, took the crown after Henry VIII had passed, the UK was in dire circumstances because of this tyrant. He had driven the UK into debt. Huge, massive amounts of debt because of trivial military interventions, trivial wars. Does that sound similar? Does that sound similar? Donald Trump taking these documents about Iran, which when I think about that, I really think that, I don't think that America would just be trying to bomb and brute and strong arm up into Iran without any reason. But I definitely think that sounds like something that Donald Trump, along with his other fascist friends, would definitely want to be exploiting. Elizabeth I had to clean all that up. She had to be the one to come in and clean all that up. I don't know if what Donald Trump is dealing with is a result of a brain injury or what it is. But, looking back at videos, I feel like he definitely has always had these nuggets of authoritarianism in him. But I think it was masked quite well. And now that mask has slipped off. We talked about that so much so recently, as the narcissist and their mask. Who's gonna be the one to come in and clean up all this mess? In a way, I think his niece Mary Trump definitely has, but I think it's all of us. I think all of us, every single American, has a duty to put this stain of history in the past, because every single way that we have known it, life as we have known it, is being threatened. America being a global powerhouse is threatened. Ain't nobody gonna want to come and be a tourist in New York, California, any of this, with these crazy fascists running around. Nobody gonna want to do trade deals with us. Nothing. So every single American citizen, if Donald Trump gets elected in 2024, you can go ahead and bet that you will suffer financially. America will become a third world country, a cesspool of crime, violence, and authoritarianism, of sexism, of misogyny, of transphobia. And education won't I mean, education and healthcare is already hyper expensive. It will be non-existent, you know. So I really, really hope that people are taking this as a warning sign, including those people who have unfortunately been swept up by the cult. I hope that this comes as a warning sign. But hey, you know, I recommend. I mean, I moved to Europe, and if that is what's going to happen with America, guys, go ahead and leave because Europe will take you. Europe is, you know, the older cousin, friend, even though this happens here as well. And as I've said, Donald Trump has given the green light for a lot of this to come out. But Europe, places like Europe, Australia, well, maybe not necessarily Australia, but Europe definitely, some parts of Africa, definitely Asia. I think that they have had enough experience. America's quite a young country to see that that type of behavior leads nowhere. And that's why they're freaking out about the prospect of Donald Trump becoming president again, because that will destroy economies. I mean, I can't even. I really feel so bad, so bad. But you know, I have to have hope that people are waking up and that people will use their voices. I feel like more young people are definitely also using their voices to be change makers. So that's one solace that I can take. Seeing his face more and more, you know that he is defeated. He's seeing in the mirror. He's not getting any younger. He looks horrible. You know, he looks like someone who was really destroyed from the inside. And these people who are continuing to support him, hey, I really hope they go and get the help that they actually need, because at this point, continuing to support him, to me, points to some deep psychological problems that's not just going to be resolved. But hey, for those brown, black, women, transgender, homosexual people, anyone outside of like a rich white man, if you gotta leave all of those fascists there together and watch how fast America will self-destruct. That's what happens under a tyrant. But guys, I really, really want to know what you think. Again, this is sort of just a big old brain cloud. I'll be coming back with something as things progress with all of these indictments and stuff. A little bit more. I feel like we'll have a little bit more insight. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments. Respectfully, if you're new here, please go ahead and click the like and subscribe button. Hit the bell so you know whenever I post a video. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.